Alright, today's episode on Tequila Forever, Forever Tequila. Mezcal versus tequila. Which one's better? Now, I've been asked many times in the past, which of the two spirits do I believe is better? To be honest with you guys, I don't think one of the two spirits is better than the other. I simply believe it comes down to your personal taste, your preference. In other words, what satisfies your taste buds. If I asked you guys, chocolate or vanilla pudding, probably gonna choose the one that you enjoy the most out of the two. But does that make it better? Now, unless you can tell me something about the way it's produced, the ingredients, something, we can develop an argument. Till then, it's really just a matter of opinion. Now, the purpose of this video is not just to further educate you guys on these two Mexican national spirits. It's really more of a wake-up call, right? As you can see on the title of the video, careful what you are consuming, right? Careful what you are drinking, in other words. There's a lot of garbage out there. There's a lot of garbage out there with additives or just not traditional. And that's why it's very important to know. If you're gonna be drinking tequila, drink some real tequila. If you're gonna be drinking mezcal, drink some real mezcal. It's like the difference between Sunny Delight and real orange squeezed juice, right? Powder horchata or homemade horchata. We don't want things that are artificially flavored. We want the real deal, right? So let's talk about these two spirits a little bit. Before we do, let's take a little sip. Start out with the mezcal. What we said, this wouldn't be a tequila video, and in this case, a spirits video, both, unless I was drinking tequila. So, what can I say about these two spirits? Both are Mexican national drinks. They're both deeply rooted in Mexican culture, history, and folklore. Now, just to be clear, it's not officially declared the national drink by law, but basically, it's what it is. The history of tequila and mezcal dates back centuries ago, right? With the origins of an ancient Aztec, right? First said that the Aztecs were fermentating the agave sap, right? And they made it into a potent beverage that became pulque, and then of course that opened up the doors and for mezcal, and then later tequila. So first pulque, mezcal, and then tequila. Now, why this is very important to know, right? A little bit about the history and what we're drinking is because for a lot of Mexicans, right? For Mexicans, tequila and mezcal is more than just a drink, right? It embodies the national pride, resilience, Mexican folklore, as I mentioned, there's history, symbolizing the spirit of independence, for Day of the Dead, and so on and so on. Tequila, it's a major contributor, to the Mexican economy. It supports local communities, helps create jobs out there, and it's part of Mexican identity, and the culture, as I mentioned. So that's why I think it's very important that we drink
the good
the right
shit.
products. It's like I've said, we want the real deal, right? We don't want Sunny Delight. We want real orange squeezed juice, So, part of the reason I also started doing this video, or I wanted to do this video, or why I'm doing this video, I was watching this video where it's Mezcalero, right? A mezcal producer, right? He was talking about, mezcal being a lot more traditional than tequila. First he was asked, the difference between the agaves that are used in mezcal, and then he goes on trying to basically bash on tequila, and I'm kind of let's be honest here. You know what I'm saying? Just because you're selling one product doesn't mean that it's better than the other. You know what I'm saying? One of the things he had mentioned was the difference is that mezcal has to be 100% the agave, versus tequila being 51%. The agave is considered to be a tequila, which is true, but that's what we call like mixed dose or gold, and that's not the kind of shit that we're looking for, So when I was watching these videos and then I started learning about the both spirits a lot more, I was like, I gotta do my own video, right? And really just speak out the truth. You know what I'm saying? Like, there are shitty products on both sides.
Traditional or not.
And I'll try to help you guys out choosing the best products. You know what I'm saying? Like, what you can do to make sure you purchase the right products. But yeah, one thing I also wanted to talk about, I guess probably heard many times, right? That, tequila is a type of mezcal, but a mezcal is not a type of tequila. And that's because, the word mezcal, it's a broader category for, agave spirits, right? So spirits that are distilled from agave. Tequila is a specific type of mezcal. For example, the Blue Weber or agave tequileña, right? The same one. It can only be made using, Blue Weber agave. And of course, it has to come from one of 5 states, which is, Jalisco, Nayarit, Tamaulipas, Michoacán, and Guanajuato. So coming from those states, it can be legally called tequila. For mezcal, on the other hand, the main state would be Oaxaca, but there's a few other states, I think even like Zacatecas, maybe Durango, they were to produce mezcal and legally be called mezcal. So there is like restrictions, where it can be made and the type of agaves that can be used. As I said, tequila can only be made using, Blue Weber agave or agave tequileña. Mezcal, on the other hand, they can use up to like 30 something different types of agave. Which I think is pretty cool because you get a whole different selection, right? There's going to be different aromas, flavors, textures. But the only problem, though, in my opinion, is the cooking methods, right? Like mezcal, traditionally, you got the round oven pits, right? Where you got the leña, you got the firewood, the volcanic stones. They put the agave, they cover them up, and then all that heat and smoke that's trapped in there when it's cooking, right? All the smoke elements is what gives the mezcal a lot of that smoky aromas and flavors that we're all familiar with. So in a way, I kind of feel that it does mask a little bit of the agave. You know what I mean? As for this one right here, you do get the smoky flavors and aromas, but it's not like super smoky or anything like that. And that's what I liked about it. I want to be able to taste the agave.
Then drink it up.
So, let me have a little bit of tequila también. And it's absolutely delicious. Now, another thing I wanted to mention too is that there's also agave distillates, right? For example, here you have this Caballito Cerrero, right? It used to be basically categorized as a tequila. I think there were some problems with the CRT, and I think they split off from them, and now it's an agave distillate, right? So it doesn't fall in the category of tequila or the category of mezcal, even though it's made in Jalisco, and they're using the agave azul. So yeah, I know you guys are looking at the tag like it's red, but it's the word right there, azul, right? There's also, the chato, the chato version of it. Get this one out here too. So what I heard and what I read, right, is that a long time ago, before there was any like regulation, rules, or anything, when they made tequila, they actually used to use, agave tequileña and then chato agave, right? So they used to use both to produce. So I heard that was part of the problem that they had with CRT, that because they were doing both, and then they didn't like that, so they were kind of like, fuck it then, like, we don't need you guys. And in reality, they don't. I still consider these to be tequilas. They do everything the way it's supposed to be done traditionally. It's just that, it's not labeled tequila. It's an agave distillate, right? And what some other agave distillates would be like raicilla, I think bacanora, sotol. Those are all like distills de agave, right? They don't quite fit the category, like I said, of mezcal or tequila. It could be the state where they're made, or just cooking methods, right? So it makes a difference. I think that it'd still be pretty cool that they still use chato, because you get to have different aroma and flavors and stuff. And I still got to do the review on that one, and I will soon. So I think it's it's quite interesting. Now that we talked about that, I also wanted to talk about what we can do to find a better product, right? To have better products and everything. So what I read as far as mezcal goes, because I'm not like super into mezcal. I like mezcal, but if the product on the label, if it just says mezcal, they can use diffusers and autoclaves. If it says artisanal, like this does, the agaves are cooked in the pit. They use clay or brick oven, and then they have for distillation they can use the clay stills. And then you have a ancestral mezcal, which is completely 100% traditional. There's avocado, which is like flavored, infused with like orange, mangoes, herbs. And then there's the distilled with chicken, which is like the mezcal that they make with that chicken breast and stuff. So that's how you would know. If the product is 100% artisanal or not. Based on what you see on the label. If mezcal uses any additives, they have to put it on the label. It's not like tequila, where if they use additives, as long as it doesn't exceed, as long as it doesn't reach 1% or exceed it, they don't have to put it on the label, which I think is bullshit. Because if you added just 0.5% of the 4 main additives, you would have a total of 2% on a so-called 100% tequila de agave. And if you added just the hair below 1%, you can have just a little over 3% of additives in your product, and you won't even know about it. So I think it's messed up. But as I mentioned, what can we do to know this? So there's an app, Tequila Matchmaker, that you can use. They have products that are additive free, confirmed additive free. You can watch reviews, like mine or anybody else's. You know what I'm saying? Where a lot of times I mention, what tequilas are additive free. Seeing where they come from, right? You can see like what if they're using diffusers, autoclaves, or Tahona crushed. Tahona crushed is really what you want. Roller mill is good. I think a lot of distilleries, the reason they use a roller mill, because it's more efficient. You get more product, right? According to the master distiller, Casa Matias, he said that one of the main differences is out of a roller mill, about 7 kilos de agave gets you 1 liter, and then it takes about 13 kilos de agave to make 1 liter using the Tahona. But the ultimate product that you get is completely different, right? The flavors that you're gonna get using the Tahona versus the roller mill, it's completely different. But you're basically doubling up your product using the roller mill. You get more out of it. The roller mill is okay. Ain't nothing wrong with that. But that's what you wanna look for when you do. You're gonna go purchase a tequila. Like I said, you can watch reviews, or you can use that app, right? Download that app, and then you can take a look to see which ones have been confirmed additive free. I think that's a really good way. That's a really good way to try to find out which tequilas have additives, which ones don't. And like I said, there are shitty products on both sides. So when it comes down to which one's better, I don't think one is better. It's all about what you tried, you know. But if you ask me which one I like better or which one I prefer, I thought you knew.